now we're gonna move on to Quentin Tarantino time. Hey, chat, what's on your S tier on Quentin Tarantino movies? What would you put there? But Quentin Tarantino is a guy I've liked for quite a while. Obviously, I think that every fucking cinephile goes through a Quentin Tarantino period, and only the uncool ones grow out of it. All right, I'm not too cool for Tarantino. Tarantino, I think, is like a fascinating director who has made some of the most interesting American postmodern work ever in the history of art. Like the guy to me is pretty damn fascinating. What kills me the most is that he's such an accidental genius. Like, I don't even think that he's meaning to do the most interesting things. I don't even think he's trying to do the most interesting things in his films. It just happens. It just happened. He's just trying to make a cool fucking movie. And like I said, he ends up reinventing the wheel like all the time. Uh, like I think he used to live by that Godard quote of all you need to make a film is a girl and a gun, right? But then when I watch his movies, when a lot of like serious critics watch the movies, they're like, "Oh, there's so much complexity here." And I think that if you ask Tarantino about it, he'd be like, "Well, happens, happens, yeah, yeah." He's so frustrating to talk about because he's so accidentally like one of the most gifted directors of all time. At least when it comes to philosophy. Obviously, the composition, he had to work for that composition, but the depth and complexity of his work, I think, are total accidents. Death Proof. Death Proof. See, that's a dark horse Quentin Tarantino movie. A very dark horse movie. But I respect the fans of Death Proof for sure. As of now, Hateful Eight and Once Upon a Time. Hell yeah. Kill Bill 2. I like that you said 2. I don't live in the same universe as Tarantino. I refuse to view Kill Bill as one movie, you know. In fact, I think they are two distinct movies. I don't think they're the same movie. I think if they were the same movie, it'd bring down the quality of both of them personally. I like the separations there. Kill Bill 2 is excellent. Yours are Inglorious Bastards, Reservoir Dogs, S tier. Big Reservoir Dogs fan. There's not a whole lot of S tier Reservoir Dogs fans out there. Jackie Brown, A tier. Jackie Brown, that's like such a mature film. It's his most mature film to date, and he made it 20 years ago. I guess if you have a gun and there is crime, it's considered gangster. Yeah, basically, I think so. That's what I was coming to terms with. Hating on Tarantino is ridiculous to me. No matter what you think of the guy, the man can make a good, entertaining movie every time. Yeah, I just go one step forward further, and I'm like, it's not just good and entertaining; it's good, entertaining, and innovative, and just perfect. The guy makes a lot of great films. I expected Death Proof to be mid, but was pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed it. I first saw Death Proof at the movie theater for Grindhouse. And that's one of my favorite movie theater experiences. And the movie came out and I was still a teenager, right? So you got fake trailers by, Eli Roth and Rob Zombie in them. And you got like Planet Terror and followed by Death Proof. And it was amazing seeing it on the big screen. It hasn't been that good since. Watching Death Proof in any other way than the big screen, it just feels so limited. It felt so wild to me when I saw it on the big screen. It is a film that suffers from rewatches because it just can't match. It just can't match the first my first experience with the film. But my God, that cast, man, Kurt Russell and Tracy Toms, Rosario Dawson, of course, Rose McGowan. It's great. I agree. Pulp Fiction is S tier too. Yeah, for sure. A tribute to cinema in a different manner than his other movies. Death Proof, yeah. It's really cool because it's a tribute to even more than Pulp Fiction, because Pulp Fiction there are a lot of references from films that are well regarded, like he's still playing with well defined archetypes from the gangster genre. But Death Proof, it's a tribute to films that have never received a tribute before. It's a tribute to films most people think are garbage. I saw Breathless on lists too, and The only reason I didn't keep it on mine is because I feel like I've talked about Breathless in quite a few of my streams, and I've said all I can say about it, but that's what I've seen. You type in best gangster movies, and people will say Breathless is a gangster movie, and it's like, was he really? Which doesn't make sense because I thought the crime has to at least be organized, and Paul Belmondo played maybe the most disorganized criminal I've ever seen. Hardly a criminal, like a wannabe bogey, right? He was a wannabe criminal, so I don't even know. A lot of people consider Breathless a gangster movie, though. But here we go. Time to get to it. Hmm. I haven't even thought about this. I haven't even thought about this. Let me get the easy S tier out of the way first. Pulp Fiction for sure. We know that already. I think Pulp Fiction is an excellent postmodern film. And now we can go on to Hateful Eight. Oh man, I really, really like The Hateful Eight. I liked it a lot more a few years ago, but being on the A tier is not an insult. The Hateful Eight, I think, is making a lot of different statements about cinema, especially like the desolate harshness of the winter, right? I think that Tarantino's making a lot of statements about a dead genre, which obviously is the Western. I think that it's a lot of, like, the ghosts, like, we're not even dealing with living archetypes from cinema anymore. We're dealing with their mummified corpses. We're dealing with zombies of a dead genre, turning on each other in a haberdashery. The Hateful Eight, and I think it's amazing, and it's an amazing film. Walton Goggins, what a revelation, alright? Incredible actor. Holy fuck, man. Jennifer Jason Leigh was also great in it, so was Sam Jackson. But The Hateful Eight, I think, is another very, very interesting movie. Django, I hate Django Unchained. I think it's I think compositionally it's like extremely juvenile. I think it's mostly Tarantino doing an impersonation of himself and a poor impersonation of himself from Inglorious Bastards. Uh I don't like it at all. And I don't like Leo's performance in it either. Jamie Foxx is all right, but like Christoph Waltz is boring in it. I think that's just Quentin doing a rather poor impersonation of himself. And I don't see a whole lot of heart in there either. And I don't even see because like what I like are these postmodern qualities, right? And of course it's a revenge fantasy. So he is playing with cinema's perception of America's history, like that is intrinsically postmodern. But I don't like the way that the archetypes are conversing um, with each other here. Uh, this is the film where I can most see that Tarantino has a kind of simplistic psychology because I can see like, oh, you just thought this was a cool movie. I don't see a whole lot of complexity here. Whereas most of his other films, accidentally a fucking genius. Django, I think he fell flat on his face and bled all over the concrete on that one. I don't like that one very much. I don't like Four Rooms either, but I think that his segment in it is a lot more interesting than Django Unchained was as a whole. If you haven't seen the his segment in Four Rooms, it is kind of fun. It is kind of fun. Uh, Not fun enough to get into the sea. There's really not a whole lot going on in Four Rooms. Four Rooms was a joint effort with Rodriguez and two other filmmakers who I forget now, but it was four different kind of short films, all featuring the same bellboy played by Tim Roth, going to these different rooms and having different misadventures. And Tarantino's segment was probably the best in the whole movie, but the movie itself was not good either. Natural Born Killers, I'm gonna put in the B tier. I think it's pretty cool. I think it's obviously an Oliver Stone movie, and I'm pretty sure that Tarantino hates Oliver Stone over this movie, over how he kind of transformed his screenplay into something it ultimately wasn't. But I do like Oliver Stone's trademark, hyper obsessive, nearly psychopathic compositional methods. Woody Harrelson and Juliette Lewis and Robert Downey Jr. were born to be in that fucking movie. I've talked myself into putting it in the A tier, right behind the Hateful Eight. Oliver Stone, he's good. I don't hate Oliver Stone at all. He's cinema's greatest fanatic, right? He's great, and Natural Born Killers is ultra violent and disturbed, incredibly disturbed, and that's also a very postmodern movie still, because like the flashbacks of their lives are shown like, with Rodney Dangerfield, as if it's an old like 80s sitcom, right? With laugh tracks and everything, and like all the sets are so clearly superficial and artificial, because you can see like crazy visuals going on outside that are unnatural. Um, and it's about the the sensationalist idea of what crime is. It might be about it probably is a critique of crime culture within cinema, and just like Oliver Stone did with Scarface, it's such a good critique that it started to reinvent what the definition of what it was critiquing was. And Jackie Brown is, to me, an S tier movie, just behind Pulp Fiction. I think it's excellent. Like I said, I think it's Tarantino's most mature movie. And it's also interesting because that didn't come from Tarantino, right? It's we get to see Tarantino actually adapting a novel, Elmore Leonard's Rum Punch. We actually get to see what Tarantino does when he's adapting material, and his vision still completely comes through within the writing itself. But in Jackie Brown, much like Pulp Fiction, we get a slightly more mature and refined examination of cinema archetypes. Interacting with each other and interacting with the medium itself. It's just that, since it is so mature and refined, it's not as rebellious. It's not as uh it's not as casually chaotic as Pulp Fiction was. I kind of live for that casual chaos of perfectly constructed cinema. I like From Dusk Till Dawn. It's so much fun. Plus, he looked so handsome in that film. Quentin did. I don't know if Quentin's ever looked like handsome. You know, George Clooney and Salma Hayek were pretty attractive in that movie, though. Django might be my least fave of his. Still like it though. It's my least fave too. I just don't like it. Just have no use for it. And Kill Bill Volume 1 to me is A tier, right beneath the Hateful Eight. Oh man, he grew so much uh, as a director between Jackie Brown and Kill Bill, and there was like a significant um he did take a significant break from films between Jackie Brown and Kill Bill, right? I think that those are the two movies that follow each other. Uh Tarantino learned a whole lot of new methods, and we see this fun, like rhythmic, actually visually innovative film like Kill Bill. I think it's an extraordinary movie. I think that Kill Bill Volume 2 is better though. I think it goes right behind Pulp Fiction on the S tier. And I do like to split these movies up because I do think that they are thematically separate. I don't think they are the same. Like, of course, their like revenge carries over to both movies, but I think that Kill Bill 2 is a pretty kind of like, so as we've talked about with his postmodern sensibilities and these different archetypes conversing with each other, they have conversations and they have shootouts and stuff, but they've never really meditated until Kill Bill Volume 2. And Kill Bill Volume 2, these kind of larger than life archetypes are actually meditating over their own like fatalistic existences. Like, she has to get her revenge, right? And she has been wronged and betrayed by by the artistry itself. And we're actually meditating on that now. And I think that's what makes Kill Bill Volume 2 so interesting, especially and this meditation comes into full depressing focus when we spend some time with Michael Madsen's character, Buddy or whatever. It's so depressing and sad that that this beloved archetype is like living in a trailer and just having to take shit at the strip club he works at, right? Like, there's a lot of meditations going on in um in Kill Bill 2, and I really like that a lot. I am doing well. Why begin? I hope you're doing well as well. Thank you for joining us. Kill Bill A going to S. um I like to split them up. Kill Bill 1 is A. I think if they were the same movie, they would feel unbalanced in such a way that would bring them both down to B. I think splitting them up benefits both of the parts. The politics of Django repel yet fascinate me. I think you consider Tarantino's accidental genius is tied to that old gangster film about prohibition you mentioned earlier. You might be right. You might be right about that. Um, Django is when I think like his actual vision comes through the most, which doesn't benefit much because it's his accidental genius that I'm here for. I mean, he's a fascinating kind of character just because this is a guy who learned everything about human existence, right, from a television screen, from the tube. And that's where he learned his moral compass. That's where he learned what he found attractive. That's where he learned right and wrong in his politics, and they are all cinema derived. And once you see that kind of like circular uh way of postmodern thinking like appear within his films, it's transcendental to me. Kill Bill is is an epic explosion of his id. That's a pretty fun way of putting it. It's a pretty fun way of doing that. Sin City, he directed one scene, right? And it's a scene where Benicio del Toro has like part of a gun stuck in his forehead, and Clive Owen is imagining talking to his corpse in the car. You can tell it's his scene. He does have a singular vision, and I am impressed that you can still tell that Quentin directed that scene and not Robert. Um, Sin City is a C tier movie to me, though. Uh, I think it's frustratingly loyal to Frank Miller's work, but it's still cool. It's still a cool movie. Uh, it's just Rodriguez lacks a lot of postmodern sensibilities. He's just very lucky to have worked with Tarantino on From Dusk Till Dawn and Sin City, and extremely fortunate to have made The Faculty, which was written by Kevin Williamson. And he's able to just make some very interesting postmodern movies where I don't think he himself is a postmodern thinker. Sin City, I think, should have been a cool postmodern movie. I think if Tarantino made it instead of Rodriguez, it probably wouldn't have looked as kind of imaginative as it did. It might have been a bit more subdued. Maybe I don't think Tarantino would have ever made it, to be honest. But Sin City, I feel like we should have really had a true postmodern examination of these different noir characters, especially when neo noir was coming back. You know, with Sin City and Brick, and there were some other neo noirs at that time period that I'm just blanking on right now, because noir comes at like very fucked up times in American history. Noir first came into full focus following World War II, and soldiers coming home living with trauma and unemployment, right? Living with like the idea of women in the workplace now, terrifying. I don't know, but film noir comes at a very interesting points in America's history. And I think that neo noir popped back up in the 70s, dealing with the aftermath of Vietnam with films like Chinatown, right? And it popped back up after 9/11. Film noir comes back into the public view when the public is dealing with some trauma and it needs some more gray characters to deal with. I just thought that maybe Sin City is too genuine of a tribute to these characters. I kind of want a bit of deconstruction and reinvention of those archetypes. But I do think that noir is interesting to view when it pops back up in popularity. And Sin City wasn't bad. It's just I don't think that one's aged too well either. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I'm gonna put that at the top of the B tier. Like, what the fuck, right? Like, it's really interesting and cool. And it's like, Quentin, you get to make your love letter to Hollywood. Then what the fuck is Tarantino even saying? Right? That's where it gets so fascinating. So like this is your grand statement on classic Hollywood, of the Hollywood of the 60s that you love so much, that informed so much of your worldview, which is a cinematic view. What exactly are you saying? Are you saying that cinema rights the wrongs of the treacherous past of humans? Like, what exactly are you saying? I think it's a fascinating kind of film that that deserves a bit of study, because It's extraordinarily articulate. I don't think it's just another revenge fantasy. I don't think it falls under the same umbrella as Django Unchained, for instance, because I think that there's a fair amount of, maybe not definitely not cynicism, but I get a decent amount of anger from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I feel like we don't normally get like an angry Tarantino, but I feel with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I feel like a lot of anger in it. I think that Tarantino's angry. I'm just speaking aloud right now. I don't have, any reasoning behind that necessarily, but, I think it's a darker feeling film to me because I think Tarantino's mad. I was wondering what Sin City was here for. I had no clue about that. Yeah, he came in and directed a scene. At least Robert Rodriguez is a badass, right? Because he brought in Quentin to just direct that one scene, special guest director Quentin Tarantino, and then he also gave Frank Miller directing credit, co-directing credit, even though he didn't actually direct. He just but in Robert's mind, he's like, "Well, I'm just lifting exactly what's on the page of the comic." So he gave him credit, but he's a badass in the sense that he lost his director's guild card because he did that. Because, like, you're not supposed to do either of those 2 things, and he's like, "Well, fuck you. I can make movies whenever I want. I don't need this cute little card." I watched Once Upon a Time in Hollywood 4 times, and it just got greater with rewatches. I think it's most joyous. I think I get a lot of anger from it, man. I think it is a very emotional film, and maybe I'm not used to, Tarantino being that truly emotional with it. I don't think it's joyous or delightful. I think that over even the film's funniest moments, there's this, hanging sensation of dread. I don't think he's angry. Old man yelling at the hippies. I don't think it's as tongue I don't think it's as there's tongue in cheek to the performances in it, there's tongue in cheek to a large part of the framework of it, but I don't think that I don't know that if that's his self-insert or if I think his self-insert is the bullet in their heads. He is fond of an era, long gone that counterculture took from him. Yeah, and I think he's angry about that because it's not just, 'cause it's a cinematic era, which to him I think is more important than what is talked about in Django and Inglourious Basterds. I think that Tarantino is that much of a little psychotic cinephile. So I think that Tarantino felt like he knew the era from Once Upon a Time, like, intimately, he's just so angry to me. I get a lot of anger from it, maybe because whoever said it was emotional earlier, Tarantino's not the most emotional guy, and maybe I was taken aback by seeing some of his emotionality being presented in such a way. He seems to understand it, but at the same time, he's angry about it. There's just anger there, I swear. But those are good points, Rodrigo. Once Upon a Time gets better, each watch for me too. I don't get angry, maybe like, I don't personally get angry, um, but I get the feeling like I'm hanging out with a guy who is angry, like, for 2.5 hours, and I'm kind of uneasy about it. Um, it's easy to see where his anger comes from. Maybe bitter or sad at his kind of film becoming extinct. I get bitter and sad as well, but, the punishment he lays on those Manson kids, and I think that the way that he so adoringly frames, Margot Robbie in it, Sharon Tate in it, it it is so lamenting and sad, right? Because, like, no matter how much you rewrite history in cinema, you can't actually rewrite history itself, so I get anger from it. I still get that Tarantino's angry that this, perfect blonde fucking movie idol couldn't continue to live, as a starlet. Because it's not like we hung out with, Anne Frank and Inglorious Bastards or anything. That was, like, very real, and, that was a very real situation, dealing with Sharon Tate, and even, like, its depiction of Roman as, like, this effete fucking nonentity was funny. of Polanski. I think the overall statement is that the film lets him fulfill his fantasies, uh, outside the real world. Sure, but maybe in Once Upon a Time, I get the idea that he does recognize a real world exists for the first time. Mad because it reflects the changing and dying. Yeah, exactly. But like I said, I think that cinema is his worldview. So it's not just someone losing his hobby. It's not just a director losing his interest or his profession. I think it's literally a human being. It'd be like a Christian losing God. It's a human being losing the foundation of his entire worldview. So like that anger has to be there. Mad and becoming obsolete. Yeah, but if that's where he derives, I think at least he used to derive a lot of meaning from life. Then he has to admit that his life will soon become not only obsolete but meaningless. Yeah, I really dislike Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I don't think it's saying anything. I think it's an angry film that is pretty articulate and does say quite a bit. Um, I think it's a solid B tier Tarantino movie for sure. To me, the way he goes so over the top with the hippies beating feels like a meta response to the critics who criticize his violence and its effect on the audience. I'm sure that's a part of it, but when I see these two dying elements of old Hollywood murdering counterculture itself, I see that more as him being angry at what he feels ultimately took cinema gold away from him. Which is fine, you know? It's a very interesting film to me because, like, everyone says it's, like, cool and interesting, but, like, people need to step back and ask exactly what it's saying, and then why is it saying it this way, though? Like, it's really cool. Glorious Bastards is better, though. The best of his weird little revenge fantasy movies, put it above Natural Born Killers. The writing in that is superb. My God. And so many revelations there, be it Christoph Waltz or Michael Fassbender. Oh my God, so many great moments there. Of course, being a Jew myself, I live for that Jew bear moment. And I think it's really well filmed, and I love that he threw Eli Roth, possibly the biggest cinematic bone in the history of friendships. Inglorious Bastards is cool. And I think it fulfills the postmodern beats a bit better than Django, well, a lot better than Django Unchained, because it's ultimately cinema itself that destroyed Hitler, right? In that theater, all the Nazis. It's the burning of film itself. So I think he's literally showing that film rewriting history within his own work. Or burning history down. I mean, not rewriting it, but destroying it, destroying its reputation, restoring its identity, destroying its image, and then that image being of the a very cruel, awful fascism. So I like it a lot. But man, that one scene, I think it is Fassbender's scene, right? Where he does the 3 instead of the 3 or whatever. Oh my god, it's one of the best scenes Tarantino ever wrote. That is just engaging, and I feel like that's a scene that Tarantino worked on for years or something. I feel like he went over that and over that and over that and perfected it. Because that shit should be studied. That's incredibly set up. Like, the narrative contained within that scene, the narrative of the scene itself is just mwah, fucking extraordinary. But anyway, now we're at Death Proof, which I'm sorry to the chat, but I'm gonna have to put at the end of B, mostly because it doesn't age very well. And even then, I'm being nice, because there's a part of me that wants to put it at the top of C. And maybe, dude, maybe I should. Maybe I should put it at the top of C because it is a grindhouse movie. Honestly, it's a grindhouse movie. Um, I think How about this to fans of Death Proof out there? If I put it anywhere above a C, then Quentin Tarantino made like a bad Grindhouse movie because all Grindhouse movies should never be above a C. Death Proof has a lot of problems in it, but it's very difficult to get into discourse about Death Proof because Tarantino is such a great pupil of Grindhouse and schlock cinema. And every issue with Death Proof can be argued away on the basis that Tarantino was doing it on purpose to make the quintessential or like to make your average grindhouse movie quintessential or average. I went like extremes with that kind of thing, but Death Proof does have I love car chases, right? It's the best car cinema I've seen since like Vanishing Point, probably. Or sorry, Fast and Furious does pretty cool shit. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. I'm just saying that Death Proof is high C, probably the top of the C, and where it belongs, where it was designed to be. And then True Romance, I don't think is as good as everyone says. I'm putting it behind Death Proof. I don't think it's better than Natural Born Killers. I don't think Tony Scott's a very good director. Um, I think it is most interesting to watch as like a Tarantino, if you're a fan of Tarantino. Uh, it's fun. It's fun, but there's the problem, right? I think that's the best example of it because Oliver Stone has some postmodern qualities to him. So I think he made Natural Born Killers even more postmodern deliberately than Tarantino would have, or at least he recognized and valued the postmodern components of the script he was given. But True Romance, you get someone like Tony Scott who directs it, and I think completely drains the film of all the postmodern qualities, all those accidentally brilliant things about Tarantino's writing, and I think he dilutes it into something that is like really conventional to me. Um, it's fun, and that's it. Like that's what you get. That's what you get when you don't have Tarantino behind the camera or like another director of notable skill. You don't get something postmodern anymore. You get a pretty fucking straightforward, goofy little self-referential tale. Honestly, the tension in Inglorious Bastards is unmatched. Not even Hateful Eight reaches it. Oh yeah, the tension's wild, especially in that scene with the that I was talking about and referencing. The one thing I can live without is people fucking quoting Christoph Waltz character all the time. Like fuck off, please. Interesting theories and analysis of Hollywood out there. One I really like is about Rick Dalton becoming a man. Also, the heart of the film seems to be the bromance love story between Rick and Cliff. I mean, I think the heart of the film is that scene of Margot Robbie or Sharon Tate enjoying the film. Honestly, I think that's the heart of the film. But I'm sure there are a lot of good interpretations out there. I haven't really put a whole lot of thought into it. That's why my ideas might be a little bit half baked, but I think I'm onto something. Regardless, I love the first half of Death Proof. It feels so much like a slasher film right out of '81. It does feel pretty authentically within that era. I think the second half's really cool too. I love Rosario Dawson a lot. Maybe I'm just like biased, but I like kind of the revenge and action element of the second half quite a bit. The build up in Death Proof towards the car crash is great. Yeah. Yeah, and we get something that Tarantino never did before because, he's been charged with being kind of like obsessed with masculinity in a large way. We just get girl talk for like fucking an hour and a half, right? We just get girl talk, which is fun to hear what Tarantino's idea of cinematic girl talk is. Sometimes it's ludicrous and sometimes I think it's like pretty cool, pretty nice. Haven't seen True Romance in forever, but don't remember being too impressed. No, no, I think that the entire cast does a good job. It's just that Tony Scott is a filmmaker without a psychology, truly, honestly. The most penetrating his psychology was in Top Gun, and that must be for all the wrong reasons, you know. Top Gun being basically used as propaganda, as a enlistment material. And it's like, yeah, good job, Tony Scott, I guess. Psychology really came through there. I mean, just look at how many people signed up. I'm on a tangent now, but signed up for the Air Force or whatever, the Navy after that fucking movie came out. Tony Scott's done a lot of damage. From Dusk Till Dawn. Above True Romance. And I'm gonna put Sin City above True Romance too. From Dusk Till Dawn is a lot of fun. um, obviously, like two different fucking movies in one. It's chaotic. It's extremely juvenile. I liked it the most when I was 15, and I think I should always hold on to how I felt about the film when I was 15. There aren't a whole lot of well, I mean, there's not a whole lot of interesting things in it either. Um, it's it's C tier. It's just C tier material. Who doesn't love the Salma Hayek dance? Who doesn't think that George Clooney isn't the coolest motherfucker in the world in that movie? But like, if we're here to talk about complexity, there's not much to go into, which is normally the way that Rodriguez goes. I think that Rodriguez's best movie was The Faculty. So he's extremely fortunate to have worked on that Kevin Williamson script. I think his best film was The Faculty by far. I love The Faculty. It's great. From Dusk Till Dawn is like so much fun. You know, I'd be a complete fucking no fun total bummer if I put it at D or anything, but I'd be being just sentimental if I put it anywhere higher. There's not a whole lot to the film. Tarantino, not a bad actor. Let's be real, not a bad actor. He played Richie pretty well. Pretty disturbing cat. Your take on Inglorious Bastards makes me see more clearly how the politics of Django are held captive by Tarantino, by his use of cinematic form, if that makes sense. I think it makes sense. I think it does. I might, I might like it if you elaborated, but I think it makes sense. I don't think you're far off. I think you're onto something, is what I'm saying. Didn't you see Tarantino's subtextual analysis of Top Gun? Am I forgetting something vital? Horrid films. Remind me. What am I forgetting? Does he have an actual analysis of Top Gun, or did he reference it in one of his movies? What even is a subtextual analysis of Top Gun? Just that it's like gay or something? What is it? And lastly, we have Reservoir Dogs. Top of the bees. Top of the bees. Good, fucking great debut. I know that it's literally Ringo Lamb City on Fire, and I don't give a fuck. I think it's so much better than Ringo Lamb's movie. I think that the film is oozing with new cinema cool. I think that that's like putting a megaphone over your debut, like, here I am, world. Get used to it. Nothing was ever the same. I think Reservoir Dogs is really fun. It's especially really cool seeing like the first time he's playing with these tried and true archetypes, and he's doing it in the most outwardly deconstructionist way ever. He puts them not only at odds against each other, but in probably the worst case scenario, right? They're like, one's fucking bleeding to death, another's dead. In fact, he's dead because he's playing Mr. fucking Brown. Like, the director dies off screen, and these fucking archetypes are left to their own devices, which is just murdering each other. Oh my god! And of course, Stuck in the Middle with You, Mr. Blonde's amazing torture scene where he cuts the cop's ear off is just one of the greatest scenes ever. Not gonna lie, it'd probably be B tier just for that. It was a movie he acted in, and yes, it's a gay theme. It's very funny. The fuck, what else did he act in? What else did Tarantino act in, you guys? And I'll figure that out in a second, I guess. Where would he have said this? I don't know. I probably have seen it. I have no idea. But it looks like go full screen. It looks like this is our Tarantino tier ranking. Tarantino tier. That's kind of difficult to get out of my mouth. But looks like we got Pulp Fiction, Kill Bill, and Jackie Brown in S. I got Hateful Eight. Kill Bill 2 in S. Kill Bill 1, Hateful Eight, Inglorious Bastards, and Natural Born Killers in A. Reservoir Dogs and Once Upon a Time in B. And then Death Proof in C. And then Django in D. But yeah, that's it. I hope that you have some similarities with my list here. I don't think it's too bad. And let's see here. Sleep With Me, that's where the Top Gun thing is from. So I've never seen it, but I just typed in Sleep With Me from in the fucking Google search, and the first thing that comes up is a YouTube clip about Top Gun, Quentin Tarantino about Top Gun. Okay. Alright, makes sense. He's not, like, a terrible actor, right? Like, he's not terrible at all. Um, I even like his scene in Desperado a lot, you know? He's not bad. I think he thinks he's a much better actor than he is. No, which is fine, that's funny. I had fun. I went into this a bit blind, and I didn't know exactly what I was gonna say. I don't know. I never know what I'm gonna say about anything until I press the record button normally. So, or the live button now that I've been live streaming. I've been enjoying live streaming, not gonna lie, I've been enjoying it. I've been liking having you guys around, um, giving me ideas, teaching me things. I've enjoyed conversing with you guys, as you guys are fucking super insightful very often, and it's really fun to engage with you. So, yeah. Yeah. I really have nothing else to say but that. I think Quentin Tarantino is really good. I often find myself in cinephile circles that like to pretend that they're way too cool for Tarantino, or that Tarantino is something you go through when you're 14 and you never look back. And if you start asking them about Tarantino, you can realize that they never ever fully investigated his movies. They're just acting too cool. And I hate those kinds of cinephile groups, man. I find myself in pretentious cinephile groups all the time. It's funny to see your thoughts on these directors you've been doing. They're so opposite in terms of the fans the directors have compared to the directors of movies I found your channel through. Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know when you found my channel, but right now I'm still like primarily devoted to like teen shows and teen movies. I think those are like the best. And fuck, if you want to talk about pretentious cinephile communities, they don't give those movies any chances at all. Any, you know? You wanna see someone with a straight face, bring up Dawson's Creek to a fucking Criterion Channel subscriber. They're thoroughly unimpressed. I will appreciate both sides, so it's cool. Hell yeah. That's the best way to do it. Thank you so much. This was indeed fun, and you always give me so much to think about. That means a lot, ML. I'm glad you enjoyed it, and yeah, I hope I gave you some stuff to think about. Whether I was right or wrong, I hope I gave you a lot to think about here. You gave me stuff to think about as well. Your last comment on Django being held captive by Tarantino. I'm gonna have to think about that a bit more, and hopefully you can provide a bit more elaboration for that, because now I'm thinking, and it's dangerous when I think. This was fun. Thanks. Thank you so much for coming here. Um, you're really awesome. Specifically, you're really awesome. Thank you for coming. Anime movies tier list next. Oh man, you want to see an entire? You want to see 50 movies on a D list? Let's fucking do it. Straight to the Fs, all of them.